webinar started.
Okay.
I'm checking.
I don't see it on YouTube yet.
I'm checking on YouTube still, yep. Does not say.
Yep.
Oh, I
Is
think
it working now?
I think it's on Facebook. Yeah, Facebook is going.
Good.
Cool.
It's good too.
All right.
All right.
Great
that's
job.
Yay.
Nice.
Okay.
Check one, okay. Now, you all should have gotten the email with the agendas. I think I figured out the technical difficulty, for why it didn't show. So there's apparently a permissions thing that has to be refreshed every 60 days, which is a
Oh.
little tedious.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I'm gonna look into that, and I don't know, that's where everything was basically moved, so that's
Yep.
concerning. So I'm gonna look into that a little bit more, and maybe just need to basically, because we're not all on the same thing, just refresh that every 2 months, I guess. But yeah, does anyone have any, comments or changes they'd like to see from the agenda, or want to make a motion to approve it?
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
Second?
And then do we need to say our names? Should we just go around in a circle, just in case?
Yeah.
So this is Sharon speaking. Chair?
Rob, member?
Gail Walter, member?
David Benak.
Bobby Glasser, member.
Steve Romanelli, member.
Okay, and then so I had a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So does anyone have any individual announcements? Like things going on in the community related, or?
Nothing that I know of.
No?
Yeah, I can't think of anything currently either.
Mhm.
News or educational items, I think we should probably mention the article that came out not too long ago about the wastewater, article about the 1.5 million gallons going technically untreated because it missed one of the processes. Hopefully we can hear more about that later. But yeah, that, I'm sure some people will be curious about that. I've definitely had some people make some comments. But I have passed on all of the emails for all of those different public comments. But that's my only thing, at the moment. Any other news items? Doesn't have to be hyper-local if it's related enough. Okay, we'll move on then. And any, I guess we can check for public comment to start. It's moving through really quick, but just in case there's anyone on the phones that already would like to make a comment. Maybe in the future we can read off that phone number so that if anyone's live listening, they can call right then. I know I've found that helpful when I was wanted to call in. Okay, so no callers right now.
Can we,
We'll do that
is there a
again
way
at the end.
Got it on the
to put
Facebook,
that
but-
phone number on the live stream?
Oh, great, that's awesome. What was that?
It is
Is there a way to,
supposed
like,
to be
put it on the live stream, like, as a crawler at the bottom of the screen?
That is how it is for some of the meetings. I see, in the Facebook post,
Okay.
it's on there.
When I
Okay.
signed up the meeting, it's already
Oh, I think,
populated.
Okay.
I think because of this issue, it's not, unfortunately, so we're only seeing a blank screen, but they can hear us. Audio is going through, I can see the subtitles.
Okay, good.
So, but yeah, for the future, we will call that, I guess I can read it now. So 888-382-9556. I guess we'll wait like 30 more seconds. And then if you don't make it then, you can always call at the end from that same phone number for public comment for anyone listening live right now.
Mhm.
All right, we'll move on. And procedural items, additionally, I guess, to this, Rachel did email, I don't know if that was to everyone or just to me, that she was good with taking over the Planning Commission subcommittee. So she'll report on that, but she wasn't able to make it today. And was anyone interested? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so we did the agenda, and then the second item is approval of the meeting minutes from June. Does anyone have any comments or corrections thank you for, last month's meeting in June.
I have one correction that I noticed on the last page under wildlife and natural resource protection. Reporting about the peregrine falcon chicks. It says someone was attached on the roof of the Radisson. Anyway, it was attacked, not attached, but you know, it's close enough. It's close enough. You wouldn't want, really, neither one is probably a pleasant experience.
Spell check did not pick that one up.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
Where is that correction?
So under wildlife and natural resource protection, just the last page.
Oh, at the very end.
Yeah, the very
Okay.
end, yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
Well, it just jumped out at me.
I just inserted via Velcro on my.
Yeah.
Made
they're,
sense.
they're getting fancy as they, protect their chicks.
Yeah.
Well, I also have a correction. I'm not really sure what, I don't remember saying anything about tugboats for Silent Lake and Policy Management Council. I don't know if anyone knows what that was supposed to be.
Where?
But under
Oh.
the same page, but yeah, tugboats. Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I'll just say cross that out and,
Just leave it at water
they're
quality.
working on water quality, improvements is probably a better thing. There's in general water quality issues, like most places, but they're specifically working towards, doing a lot of improvements for water quality. So that's a correction for me. Anything else from anyone?
There must be some other fun things
I
in there.
don't know, I also wasn't sure procedurally what, who does these corrections. I think Ian was doing them maybe in, live, or is it being recorded to be corrected? I wasn't clear on that, I guess. I just wanna know
Probably live,
what,
but if
yeah.
you write them down and hand them to me,
Yeah.
make sure that they get a paper copy.
okay, great, because I just, I'm making like written corrections, but I wasn't sure if that's translated for the final draft. Awesome, okay. Great. Well, if there, I guess, do we have a motion to approve these as corrected? And if there's any other small details, we can also correct those via email. Anyone notice it? Do I have a motion?
All
Okay.
motion.
Steve?
Yeah. Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, that passes. Thank you, I need to like put that as a bullet point itself, a little bit farther over, because I missed that two times in a row. Okay, and so back down to procedural items. Has anyone, decided they are interested in vice chair for ECC? No changes, okay, hopefully in the next few months, we can get that figured out. Yeah, that would be nice. But we will pass on that for now. And I meant to separately email you, Jean, but did we by chance get any new applicants? Okay, we do have the one vacant spot, so if anyone's listening and is a City of Kalamazoo resident, please apply for the open position. We meet monthly at 4:30 p.m. And we have diverse different interests here with environmental topics, and we would love to have a full board. Okay, so moving on. And Jean, if you'd like to go ahead, you can, for ongoing business, we're getting our quarterly wellhead update.
Okay. Well, wellhead.
Uh-huh.
We have a lot of things. I just wrote down, a number of things that staff kind of passed on to me, things I'd like to share. As you know, I work on wellhead protection as well as stormwater compliance and then any of the environmental liability sites for the city. So, we are down on our well fields to 90 production wells. We have several that are temporarily taken down and, in the last couple of years, taken some down completely. From our new water operations supervisor, Brock Van Dyken, these are his comments. At Station 11, this is by Western, They have sand filter media replacement complete, and they're currently working in the process of replacing the air stripping tower media. This is one that and has some very trace levels of volatile organics for many years. Once finished, we will have high hopes that both of our VOCs and iron content leaving the station will be the lowest we have seen in many years. Station 9, which is off of Kilgore, kind of across from Hackett High School, is having 4 wells professionally cleaned this year and hopes of better, cleaner pumping capabilities. Station 5, which is over near West or East Michigan and Skipper's Lane, is having all 4 wells auto-surge for good preventative maintenance. Station 5 is also having a major overhaul, including new booster pump and motor. So this is a complete vision of the entire station. They're keeping the wells, but building a brand-new station with all the bells and whistles. It will be our highest end as a station, including PFAS removal, even though we don't need it. It's there for the future. We just finished installing 3 chlorine pacing valves at Central, giving us much better control of the chlorine residual. We hope to begin switching more stations over to our polyphosphate blend in the near future, which will improve our corrosion control throughout our entire service area. I think those are all real positive things that they're working on the quality of our water and our stations. We are, as part of our wellhead protection program, we have a contaminant source inventory we do every 5 to 6 years, and that is any facility, property, or anything within our wellhead capture zones. We do a complete search of all the environmental risk issues that could potentially affect our well fields. And so this year it is due, and that's a pretty big endeavor to do a lot of the data search, and then we put it on a GIS layer so that during site plan and things like that, it's available to me to check on some of these properties what the risk potential is for our well field. We are also working with the local townships wherever any of our capture zones for our wellheads are extended into a different township, like Oshimo. There are a couple that have wellhead protection ordinances, but because the city redid ours and it was approved in September of 2022, that means that even if the township has a ordinance, it will have to be updated. But when we did our ordinance at the city, we updated our performance standards, which is actually the huge document that details out all the things that have to be done, and it includes stormwater management. So we are working with all the other townships that have a wellhead capture zone to establish an ordinance and performance standards, and we've provided them templates to use as a means to kind of mimic what we do, but make it specific. So we're getting a little further on that. It's quite an endeavor. We are also working on all our well fields to update spill containment plans. Things that haven't been done in a long time. We have new staff, we have new chemicals, and we have new processes. So this is going to be a big endeavor, and we're going to do it at any of our well fields that have chemical storage or use, basically. And that includes putting in some new better management plans, annual inspections, purchasing spill response equipment, having contractors available, and we do have something that we put together about a year ago, a spill response packet, and that goes to, I've given it to like all the divisions, all the departments, public safety, you know, hazmat, so that they have the information that they need to respond and who to call and our subcontractor and how we go about getting them out there with a 1-hour response.
Very nice.
McLinden Trails, which is out in Comstock, is part of our Wellfield 25, Tampa Lake. We have a series of recreational walking paths that we have allowed for years. We are cutting off walking paths that go anywhere near our service station because it's it interferes with us getting our work done, and there's a lot of vandalism on our little pump condos, as we call them. So we've redone those trails, we're putting signage out, we have a huge, 4 by 8 feet sign at the parking lot, which spells out that this is a wellhead protection zone. All the don't do's, don't do this, don't do that, do
Right.
this, and what a wellhead protection zone is, and where that water, serves our citizens.
I hate to be ignorant, but why is there vandalism on this stuff? Does anybody have any idea?
Because it's there. I mean,
There's homeless, there's people that make their own trails in just because it's a 200-plus acre
Okay.
parcel. It's beautiful back there, it's next to Campo Lake, it's true of all of our well fields. Everything gets vandalized, even our signs, with our big 4 by 8 sign we put out, we put a covering on it because it'll be vandalized, at least
No
we
kidding.
just remove the clear covering.
Yeah, they don't charge enough for spray paint. That's the problem. There needs to, you know, the price of everything's gone up, but there hasn't gone up enough for spray paint.
So it's a persistent problem as well as homeless. And at that particular, McLinden Trail, we paid $10,000 to remove an underground, homeless encampment last year.
Underground?
Underground, it was one of the most sophisticated, the sheriff said he had ever seen, and it was really something. Yeah. So, anyway, very similar to that, El Sabo, we've been working on, the trail mapping for a long time. Unfortunately, Ben Clark, who had been helping us get all the trails mapped and the illicit trails mapped and all the, important things that we would want to note in this 700-plus acre parcel, where he was pulled away from the project, but we're getting back on it. We had already put out a bunch of, signs during COVID when so many people were using it, that we started just getting calls like almost every week about vandalism and property damage and things that were being done that shouldn't be done. So that has really curbed. I did notice, I was out there recently, and they've taken some of our nice signs, unfortunately. We are also at El Sabo, which is Station 25 out in Texas Township. We are engaging with Eagle on a chloride study for Asylum and Wood Lakes. They want to use the El Sabo, Portage Creek, area to put in a background sample. They feel that that's an area that should have very low chlorides and could be used compared to Wood Lakes and Asylum. We've done initial invasive species, mapping out there that will also be available. We hope to have the mapping app available with a QR code at the parking lot. That's my goal, finally get it finished. But that's a large area. We have an agreement with SWIMBA, the Southwest Michigan Mountain Biking Association. We've had it for about 3 years, for them to actually, do mountain biking out there, or biking of any kind, because it was prohibited for many years due to the soil erosion. However, they give us a lot of, maintenance, routine maintenance. They call in any issue. Last year, they called in a, the exposure of a large natural gas line that was very serious.
Yeah.
And, so we had that repaired. So they're our stewards in a sense.
Yeah.
And, as long as they maintain trails, and they're actually taking out trails that go by our service roads, so that we don't have bikers flying by the drill rigs and things like that. They made new sustainable trails with some really high-end equipment. But, that's a really cool thing. We just finished our wellhead protection grant application in June. We've had this for 20-some years. We use it, it's about $70,000, that's the maximum you get. We almost always get the maximum. We're probably the only ones in the state because of our, program is so advanced. We spend it all on public education. So we'll see about that. We are also, do a lot of radio, movie theaters, TV streaming. We do a lot of things, but we're also working now with Battle Creek and Marshall to increase our radio ad outreach. So radio ads can be anything about protecting water. We'll tie in some stormwater things too, or better ways to do things, leaky pipes, I mean, it could go on and on. But it's been very popular, and our metrics are really high, so the state's really highly of it. In general, our educational activities, including our public services week, have greatly increased. We were given a small budget to update our groundwater models and fix them from leaking and various things, so we've been out in the community giving quite a few presentations. And during the public services week, we were at 3 facilities with hands-on active models, as well as activities like creating a water human cycle bracelet and things like that. But hands-on things that I think really impact people. And then I've been working for a while to join the Michigan Forest to Faucet program. A lot of people want to work with us. We are actively doing our second forest management stewardship plan, and we have a third that's going for proposal this year. And so we want to manage the forests much better. They have not been managed properly. They're generally our well fields. Unfortunately, recently, the state designated groundwater sources for drinking water supplies as not being eligible. So I'm not sure what we can do there, but that's a really good new funding source and program we can do. I know the Kalamazoo River Watershed Council would like to do something with us. We have land, they have a watershed, so
Yeah.
it should be something, but it doesn't sound like we'll be able to do anything big with that program. So as far as stormwater, when I started here 5 years ago, we couldn't even put a work order in on a stormwater asset. It was just stormwater issues were done by various departments of public services, whoever could get to it. There really wasn't any united way of handling operations, maintenance, repair, replacement, or any of that. And as you know, stormwater is not funded. But we started the Lucidity program, which helps us manage our assets and helps us track them, map them, and we have a GIS layer. It also allows us to do risk assessments, so we know what is our problem, so that with them, they will be able to clean out our catch basins and repair things and so forth. We are 95% done with that, and that is like an amazing goal. And we are being used as sort of the, this is how you do it right for our water and wastewater and things like that. Not that they haven't done great things and they're different, but we really have a great program. So the other thing is the concept of becoming a stormwater utility. We are really trying our best to take that serious through our Public Works Department. Anthony Ladd has been working closely with us to help us get some basic things done. So we're in the second year of actually hiring a contractor to do risk assessments on our stormwater assets, and because the data is so old, I mean, we have data, but bad data doesn't help us determine what we need to do. So we are making small strides because of the volume of our, just the infrastructure, 14,000 manholes, it just goes on and on. How many pipes and so forth. But now this is the second year we will have a contractor at least expand the risk assessment. So next year we're hoping that we get a small amount of funding to do some cleaning at least, so that the pipeline can convey the water properly, clean out catch basins. It won't conquer the biggest problem, but it will, if we hit the worst assets, we'll do some good. We started our stormwater outfall inspections this summer, and that's underway. We're looking for dry weather flow. We're inspecting the condition of the assets, and we are recording all of that in Lucidity, so we know what we've done, and we won't repeat it. We'll move on to new things. We have 8 major retention basins, and of course, there's no funding to maintain them, but we We have chosen to try each year to do one basin thoroughly, so we did accomplish Street Basin. I don't know if you know where that is, off of Parkview. Let's see. And we're continuing, this is our second year to work with, we call it the Kalamazoo Stormwater Working Group. It's all the governments that have stormwater permits. We're working actively together on an educational program. We've had grants to fund our education for 2 years. It's been phenomenal. We are like really one of the best on that. And we are just, it's been really good educational tools. So we had $29,000 last year to use our Protect Your Water Net website to host a web page and then market that for, and it includes all the governments in Kalamazoo County. We were able to bring up our mandated 11 topics for stormwater and put them in English and Spanish so that we have both versions, market them and get metrics, and we're going to continue to do that even when our funding goes out. So we'll have more funding to put that together. It also allowed us to have a few stormwater brochures, some T-shirts, and a banner that says, you know, for the Kalamazoo Stormwater Area Working Group. And let's see, our MS4 NPDS permit, which we submitted in April 2022, we've had several revisions. It was put on hold back in February, has been put back in process. We're told that we'll get some type of response. We put a long letter out to the state asking them to reconsider what we have submitted because of our limited ability to fund a number of things that they're requiring us to do. We just simply can't. We wouldn't even come close with what we have. So it's basically, if we were to agree to do them, we would be automatically like non-compliant. Just no funding for it. So we'll find out about that. And I met someone at Eaton Conservation District who, when we were talking about E. coli sampling, that's mandated on 3 of the creeks here in Kalamazoo, which doesn't make a lot of sense, and there's no procedures, there's no methodology that's approved by the state. There is another option, and that's looking at the macroinvertebrates, because they are the end result of the health of the stream. So we're talking about maybe looking to get a grant to try that as a better means of assessing the health of things. That could be interesting. And then for our major facilities that have chemicals and so forth, we are updating the stormwater pollution prevention plans, which is, basically making sure that, where you have major chemicals, chemical use, storage, and all that, that you have procedures in place to properly manage it and deal with any type of spill. So updating spill kits, making sure things are properly stored, containment structures, it's a whole revamping, and all that goes into our Lucidity program, which makes sure that every manager of those inspections and so forth is notified, and they have to complete the inspections, so we're not just putting a plan out there on a shelf, it's actually getting done. So that's a pretty big endeavor. We've gotten Stockbridge done. Of course, our wastewater plant has one separately. We just finished parks for their facilities, and now we're moving on to public safety. So bear with me, I'm almost done on the liability sites. Allied Paper, they're still in the process of consolidating the landfill, re-landfill footprint. So there's been a number of unexpected issues. The trust is running out of money, but they did bring in a new potentially responsible party under the federal government. They are under an order to participate, and they will be taking over the actual work of consolidating the landfill. There's still a number of issues that have not been resolved yet, and the long-term expectation that the city would someday take over ownership of the property and conduct routine maintenance is still a possibility, but there's so many unknowns at this point. Got done talking to EPA, right before here. We're not in that talking phase yet. But International Paper is the new, party that will be officially taking over the work there. I believe it's July 27th. And then KL landfill, due to the dioxin out there, we're still extending water main, adding new potable wells where we can't get main, and working on the Van Buren groundwater restriction zone. So, other than that, public services and CPED site plan reviews are pretty much in final stage for the Kalamazoo Country Club, which was a pretty big endeavor. And we're meeting regularly for the event arena downtown, and all of the complications that are right in front of us there. So we continue to just try to make the process better and try to be more available to the public when they come in and have these developments. But I think we're doing a good job. That's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
That was a lot.
Well, what do you really do, Jean?
Well, I come here to be with you guys once a month.
What kind of staff?
I have Susie Drust, comes from wastewater. She has minimal environmental experience, but she's very good. She has some sustainability classes and a number of good things that fit in scientifically. So kind of working with her, training her. She does primarily a lot of the stormwater aspects for me, and she's just a joy to work with. So she's been working under me for a year, and prior to that, I had a person for a year. But if you would like to help with more staff, sure. It would be nice, money, staff.
You said, Ray, one of the first things that you have 90 wellheads now?
Production wells.
Okay, so how many did you have, and why is that number smaller now?
For many reasons. I can't list them all. I've only been here 5 years, but there used to be somewhere like 130 plus, and that was, a lot of these are really old wells. Some of them go back to 1930s, 40s, yeah, and we're still pumping it. We're constantly replacing, but technology has allowed us, say, for central well fields, to reduce the number of wells and make them higher capacity, more efficient wells. It's just new technology. Other things, like 2018, the PFAS issue sprang up, and now we're sampling PFAS in water supplies routinely. A few of our very, very small well fields had traces, so they're not exceeding a health standard or criteria, but we put them in sort of a temporary, no use. They could be used again, but we're still working on sort of a major new plan because PFAS, cleanup or other cleanups are just kind of standard now. Whether you have it or not, you really just kind of need to prepare. So we also took out a couple of small well fields. I think they each had one well from Millam, the Millam area. They just were not functional. They were old. And as we're working with the state on, we have a consent order, they're asking us to reduce the points of entry into the system. And, really need James Baker to explain all that because I don't work directly with that. But it's the state wanting us to consolidate so that we have more, less variation in our water quality from station to station, because they were all built differently at different times historically. And, for example, we have iron removal at Central Station, but we don't have it at some of the others. And, so as we're working through that, our system, because we have a number of well fields around the city and in the city, we transfer water all around the city. It's very unique, but it doesn't really fit in the state model for how to regulate the, water system. That's kind of simplistic, but overall, they want us to reduce, the, that's part of it.
Sure, makes sense.
However, that leaves us much more vulnerable should we have a well field that gets contaminated and we have to take it down, or there's something else that happens.
Right.
We are extremely vulnerable as we reduce that, because we don't have the redundancy.
Yeah.
So, one of the reasons you mentioned, that was a lot, also.
Sorry.
It's okay. I just was trying to not forget, the PFAS mention, you said trace amounts and nothing over governable levels of what would be unhealthy or whatever. My question, follow up with that is, not all PFAS are regulated in general, so are there any that have trace amounts that aren't on the regulation list or are in process of regulation? But also, this is an older one, so I guess that doesn't exactly matter unless we needed to go back to that, right?
It's been a couple of years since I evaluated some of that data. So what I can say is this, they weren't persistent. So if you found PFAS 1, 2, and 3, next time you might not have found any. You might have found the third time PFAS 4 or 5. And, never really a health issue, never really a pattern, but, just the presence alone. And until you can understand what those numbers are statistically, is it a value that you found at 1 time, 2 times, 4 times? There's a lot of ways to look at data. I have to tell you, if you want a real answer to that, an upgraded, someone who looks at the data and does the monitoring, you'll have to, talk to or Joe Bonham, who's my supervisor. I don't keep up on that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because, PFAS, for the levels that are considered bad, the ones that are regulated, we're talking parts per trillion, so trace amounts can matter, so.
Absolutely. But, that's what I can tell you.
Okay, sure.
Mine is a simple summary based
Yeah,
on data that I haven't looked at in a while, so.
Gene, one of the first things you mentioned was, immediate change out in an air stripper unit at a well field over by Western's campus. But I backed that up, and that tells me that the screened interval for that well field is in a position within that aquifer that we are pulling known contaminants, right? You don't run water through an air stripper to remove volatile organic compounds unless you know they're in there. Do we know, obviously they must be at a level, and air stripper's pretty good at removing, volatiles, from vapor phase out of water, so that's fine. But I guess the greater question is, do we know the origin of those volatile organics, and why would we use a well field that is screened at an interval that we know we're pulling contaminated groundwater as a source of drinking water?
Well, it's funny you should ask me that.
Okay.
When I was getting my master's degree, I got hired by the city as an intern.
Yeah.
And, they sent me out to look for the source
Yeah.
of those VOCs. And I scoured
Right.
with a yellow vest on,
Yeah.
everywhere I could, the
Yeah.
fields around Western and
Yeah.
so forth. They have never found a source. There are several, really well-done, studies on the VOCs, where they came from and so forth, and there's no smoking
It's not a
gun.
point source, yeah. Are
They're
they
very
petroleum
small.
related, or are they chlorinated, or just a couple oddballs? that
Couple
just go up?
here and there.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
as I understand it, again, I don't have all the data on the well fields, I don't do all the chemical analysis.
Right.
As I understand it, we don't really need the air strippers anymore.
Yeah,
We
okay.
do still monitor though.
Oh,
Absolutely,
sure,
100%.
sure.
We still monitor. We don't really need it, but one of the real reasons we like it is it provides that iron removal.
Yes,
So, that's a huge advantage.
but that comes up to media, so you have others.
Well, these air strippers are older too now. It's been decades,
Yeah.
and, we're working on our methodology of how we go about, you know, the change outs and the cleaning and so
Yeah.
forth, and, you know, updating the equipment to do so. So that's a lot of part of, you know, what the operators
Yeah.
have to do is we're re-looking at our processes, how can we do it better, save ourselves O&M costs,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, yeah.
water quality.
Yep. Okay, was just curious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know all about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean.
Okay. I have a separate question, but I think I'll wait on that. So does anyone else have any other questions? It seems like we're good. Okay. Asylum Lake and / zoning update. The second draft was finished, comments closed. The city does plan to do a third draft. So, and I also wanted to mention, I was shown this letter from the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association, and they noted another change, or another suggestion, basically, in the NFP section, Natural Feature Protection Overlay Standards section 50-6.2, and they proposed some language changes that are, so basically, it's currently listed as, it is demonstrated that relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and the purpose of the NFP overlay district. And they are suggesting it is demonstrated that relief requested will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the NFP overlay draft. Sorry, reading that is probably not as easy to understand as, hearing it is not as easy as reading it, but, I thought that was an interesting, language change, and I can read their reasoning, I guess, here too, I might as well. The neighborhood board opposes this change to zoning code language because the board believes it is poor public policy to eliminate existing language that clearly indicates detriment to the public good must be considered before relief, aka a variance. From protecting a natural feature, from protecting a natural feature can be granted. Sorry, I said that bad. As referenced in multiple sections of the NFP, what constitutes a natural feature and how the natural feature is protected are not limited by artificial, demarcations such as property boundaries or neighborhood boundaries. This is because natural features are ecosystems that are intrinsically independent of these artificial constraints and consequently do not serve the greater public good. It is then only proper and logical that this relationship be clearly acknowledged in the NFP overlay standards so that the intent of the NFP will continue to firmly align with the goals of the city master plan, city sustainability plan, and individual neighborhood plans. Is that understood? I might have.
So can you give us like, just,
I gotta ponder that a minute.
Yeah.
can you give us the sort of the translation of
Yeah, so
what,
they don't
what they're
like this proposed language because they're saying it's stripping the integrity a bit and that it's not aligning with the original intent.
okay.
And so it's yet another small detail that can be seen as negative or not
Eroding,
as
like
in alignment with
eroding
the,
some of the protection.
yeah. So, so I know that they aren't planning to vote on this until September. So I was planning on maybe, I can't remember when I sent you guys that email. If that was before the second draft, was that after the last meeting? For the, I encouraged, submitting public comment before it was due because we didn't have a time to
Right.
discuss it before the second draft was, comments were due. So now there is going to be a third draft, so I basically, plan on us hopefully talking about this again next month and
Okay.
seeing, if we want to come up with another suggestion, and I thought that was a pretty good one to go off of, and I'm sorry, I should have sent that to you. But I'll send that out too, so that you all can actually read it, and, I wasn't planning on trying to make a motion or anything with this today, or proposing that, so, if you're interested, I I might be interested in that for next month.
Yeah,
Okay.
please do send that out and let's, put
Yeah.
it on the agenda.
So everyone can look into that a little bit more. Okay, but yeah, that was basically, my update on that. And then, does anyone have an air quality update that they'd like?
So one of the groups I'm working with, we reached out to Just Air and had a conversation with them to get more, unfiltered information about exactly what they're monitoring and how that is gonna be available. It's not good. The only thing that the Just Air will monitor from Just Air's words themselves is the particulate and NO2.
And
That information is already publicly available, at least the particulate is. The NO2 will be publicly available for free as soon as NASA's program is up. I mean, so it's a waste of money. It's not giving us anything that we,
wasn't that a free, or like a grant that they, like, that wasn't city money, was it?
there is some city money in it,
Oh.
yeah.
Okay.
So, but basically, the Just Air monitors aren't going to give us anything that we don't already have. They are from their words, they're working on making it available, the public data. They don't currently have an exact plan as to how they're gonna make that data publicly available. So that's where we are with the Just Air monitors,
Okay,
from Just Air.
yep. And if people don't remember, that's, they came in, or they digitally came, I believe, and presented, or did they come in person?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, they came, they, spoke to us about that, their plans on that a few months ago.
Is there any update on, the air quality in general? I know that there were some, litigations and lawsuits, a lot of community activity.
The lawsuit is still going forward. The case that went before the judge tossed, I think it was I can't remember if it was public or private nuisance, but allowed two of the other main, charges that are, or I don't know if charges, but two of the other main, items are going forward still. The H2S monitors are still live, and they're still well in violation every single night. I don't know what other updates.
And Brad Devereaux still posting daily, snips of what those look like?
There haven't been much
Anyone's
new,
interested to follow?
yeah, there hasn't been a whole lot of new, media coverage, but it's
Mhm.
they're still, well and in violation every night.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then, are you talking Canadian wildfires as well? 'Cause
Oh.
I'm following that on the, that one app, yeah,
Is that the
Air
EPA?
Now.
Yeah, is that the EPA?
It's the EPA app, so currently we're at, moderate, and you can kind of scroll down and see what the forecast is.
Yep.
And give you some ideas, so I think that's a decent resource, I've used it, to decide how much I want to spend time
Yeah, I
outside.
think I've been using the same one.
If you're using that, you may also want to check out, Purple Air. They have a map, and there's probably, depends on which ones are all online, but there's about a dozen sensors at people's houses around town.
Oh, nice.
And those seem to be more, reliable than there's times when the Purple Air monitors and the EPA app don't.
Aren't exactly aligned, yeah.
Yeah, like, serious, there was
Yeah.
one a few days ago where the Purple Air monitors, were a little over 100, and the EPA monitor was at 50.
Okay, I actually was curious about that, because a few days ago, I saw the haze, and I looked, and it didn't seem to exactly align when I was just looking at the,
I don't know where the EPA,
where their data's pulled from.
yeah, where their sensors are and how they compile that. It seems like the Purple Air ones are a little bit more accurate.
Do they differentiate, is it total particulates, or did they differentiate 10 micron and 2.5 micron? 2.5 PM.
I know the Purple Air, you can choose which ones you
Oh, okay,
want.
okay.
And I always have it set on 2.5.
Sure.
I don't know, I haven't looked at the EPA.
I think the air now is 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's
I'm
what
pretty
I'm,
sure it's
Good to know.
2.5.
my understanding too.
Yeah, thank you, good to know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on to new business, per that one email, about the comment about insects, the one person in the community that emailed everyone and I forwarded it, they were,
Oh,
they were concerned about not seeing as many insects, and, they were curious if other people were saying that, basically. So, I had already, thought about, I'd love to bring to the table talking about, what we can do as a city to, encourage things that would help with, not having insect apocalypse, basically, including, encouraging native plants. We already have some things that in the past were done via, I believe, Wild Ones, to change how the nuisance laws are so that it encourages, if you're doing, intentional native gardens, that's more accepted than maybe some other, cities or governments. But I would love to see that, further and see it actually encouraged to increase our hyper-local, biodiversity. And I was curious what other people had ideas about, or if you have had similar thoughts, or looked into that as well, or if we'd want to add that as a topic, or an action, or
About along those same lines about insect health and getting the city to establish a policy of using native plants, but also to get the city to stop using pesticides.
well, the city doesn't use pesticides in the parks.
I've seen the signs.
Okay.
You're not
Like-
allowed on any well.
Well, it's, I'm a big, disciple of Doug Talama's, as I'm sure many of us are, and, I'm using his mosquito control method, because, and it makes me cringe. In my block, I see Pest Pros, I see Mosquito Shield, just spraying everything. It kills all insects. And, I'm using the kitty litter bucket with a handful of straw and a mosquito dunk in my yard. And it only kills mosquitoes, and, it's pretty effective, and it doesn't kill any other, it just kills mosquito larvae, because there's no other, anyway, that's all that's in there. And I don't know, maybe we could do some public service announcements about that kind of stuff, because people are just have this knee-jerk reaction to, I saw a bug, and, I don't want ticks, I don't want mosquitoes, oh, I break out with mosquito bites, I just swell up. And all of the products that are being used, by all these companies who, are just, there is an insect apocalypse, I can't even say that word, but, just like, there's been documentation of declines in a lot of species, it's been pretty well documented, so that person who was observing that, he's got a valid observation.
Yeah.
Just as you guys have been talking about, I didn't even think twice about it, which leads me to believe probably most people aren't really aware of it. So, I don't know if it's education, I don't know if it's awareness, but I think the more people know and understand, I think they can start to figure out, okay, this is how it's impacting me, and this is what I can do.
Yeah.
Right.
Mosquito dump thing, I am amazed I didn't know about that years and years ago. I don't remember when I learned, but I'm so excited about that solution, and everywhere I've seen, that exact method used has seemed beneficial for that one goal of not having a bunch of mosquitoes around.
Well, and you think about these, the companies that come and they spray, when do they come? They come in the middle of the afternoon, they come in the morning, they come during 8 to 5, and they're spraying. They're not getting any mosquitoes.
Right.
The mosquitoes come out in the evening. And the other thing that really, I think, is, pretty disturbing to insects is all of the yard management companies that use those really powerful leaf blowers. Which, you know, that just disrupts any leaf litter on the ground, and just, there's no insect that, it's like a, you know, a hot tornado for insects. You know, there's no way they can survive that.
There was a discussion I was in the other day where somebody was talking about the decibel levels. And those things they are prohibited by city ordinance unless you have like a 1 acre lot when it comes to the decibels. They make too much noise.
There are some communities that have banned gas-powered, leaf blowers and equipment. Washington DC is one, and so everybody has to switch over to battery-powered, which you have less emissions from the combustion. It's lower noise level. You know, it still does the same thing, but, so, you know, all of these yard management companies, you know, grumbled and had to switch. And I would love to see something like that in Kalamazoo too, of a ban on gas-powered, you know, leaf blowers and other yard equipment, but the leaf blowers are pretty obnoxious with the noise pollution.
And so there, other pollution, like you mentioned, they are the most polluting type of motors, those two-cycle engines.
And it poses a health risk to the workers who are using those, you know, 8 hours a day or longer. Both the fumes that they're exposed to, the air quality, and then the sound, even though they're supposed to wear hearing protection. They're still breathing the fumes, even if they have goggles and ear protection on. So it's, and, you know, this is a population that is, you know, what would you say? These are, you know, these are not white-collar workers. You know, these are, pardon?
Hourly employees.
Hourly employees. I was trying to think of what's the right term. It's the hourly employees that are risking more of their health for these types of jobs. So I don't know, just my 2 cents on it. Kind of off topic here a bit, but.
No.
But no, this is a topic. And the other pollutant that doesn't get mentioned, there's been some studies of the air quality afterwards, and what these things blow up into the air is very high counts of bacteria and fungal and fecal bacteria from not just dogs, but squirrels and deer. And
Deer.
So what they're launching into the air is very unhealthy.
Yeah, dead insects.
Yeah.
Poor dead insects.
I always found raking to be a good workout.
Yeah, you know, rakes are really underutilized.
I know.
We do not
It's a
have.
graduation requirement for every teen, never.
Yes, it's a great idea.
I love it.
Yeah.
But
If we wanted to pursue something about leaf blowers, I'd be happy to help with that. I think it would be a long-term project that would take considerable education, and a phase in. I do think it would improve quality of life as well as environmental health.
Definitely improves quality of life. When you think about just like bird health and other wildlife who are exposed to all of those things, the particulate, the fumes, the noise.
Gail, do you know, are there such things as overall insect population surveys or maybe species specific? I know we monitor the health of bees because it's a big deal and stuff like that. I mean, are there known studies that document that insect populations are down, and maybe in particular in urban areas? And do we attribute causes to that we can?
There probably are, and I'm not conversant. I'm not conversant on that.
It has been quiet at nights this year, but this is a low cicada year, so they're not up there singing like years where they're real prevalent. So I have no way of knowing whether any particular roofing
I
insect
bet-
is up or down.
I bet
My
Doug
windshield
Talmay
says
could
they're-
tell us that,
Yeah,
since he's an
my windshield
entomologist.
says they're plentiful when I drive down the road, but
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
But, you know, I'm sure that there are. Speaking of insects, a little bit off topic also.
Sure.
They are monitoring, you know, mosquito populations for, arboviruses, and, Tripoli has been
Right.
found, not in Kalamazoo County, but in, Berry County, I believe, and
Oh.
not in an animal or a person, but in an insect, in the mosquito population.
Interesting.
So it's, you know, it's
Out
out there.
Oh, yeah.
And people on the east side of the state, there have been a few recorded cases of, Kenyan virus, encephalitis and something else. Anyway,
Okay.
it's that time of year.
Yep,
Mid to late summer,
yep.
so.
So do we want to, add it as ongoing business, or create a subcommittee, or?
I'd like to circle back to the topic for sure.
Let's make it ongoing business and see if
Yeah.
it gets traction. If it doesn't
Okay.
get traction,
Sounds
we'll
good.
drop it.
I have an article somewhere on the leaf blower thing. And if I can find it, I'll forward it to everyone. You know, it was a ban in, you know, a community, either Washington DC or Baltimore or somewhere
Right.
in that neck of the woods. And it talks about other communities that have banned gas-powered lawn equipment.
Yeah, so how would we want to label this? Do we want to stick to, specific about leaf blowers, or insect issues, or, I feel like it could be a lot of things, so
Yeah.
just,
Wonder if, it can run through Justin, but I also would be willing to check with our city attorney and see what the process is for it.
yeah.
Natural debris removal and waste, I guess.
And
Yeah.
like if you
Yeah,
can use
brush,
gas-powered,
yeah.
I was basically
Yeah,
saying
Justin
land.
Gish would want to
Yard
get in on that.
maintenance or yard maintenance.
Yeah, okay, land management is what I kind of wrote in there, so let's say yard management. Techniques, I don't know.
I think where you're heading is the right, whatever it's called, just, again, my ignorance, I don't know. And the more I can know, I think, and I'm pretty sure our citizens feel, the more we
Oh,
know.
I'm not sure.
It'll be a huge, doesn't say,
Oh, it's a
it'll be
change.
But-
tremendous backlash.
But,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
but-
but what will happen
You gotta
actually over
start somewhere.
time, as we're seeing changes in car manufacturing and more interest in hybrids and electric vehicles, we're seeing, you know, I have a battery-powered lawnmower, as many people do in my neighborhood, and at some point down the road, you will not be able to go to Lowe's and buy a gas-powered leaf blower. They'll all be battery, because that's sort of the trend and the direction that the industry is going. But we can help them get there a little
I just
faster.
wonder how strong the argument against is, like, with, I mean, I have all electronic yard equipment and stuff, but, like, how long the batteries last, and, like, the solar panel argument for, like, when the batteries are done, then what do you do with the lithium ion and
And
stuff like that, so.
that's a valid
Well,
thing.
there's also plug-in ones, you know,
Yeah.
people have a.
Sure, yeah.
That's what I do, I drag it for you.
Like, with my power tool, the
Works
only
fine.
power tool I have that's got a battery is my drill, because, you know, everything else, you can't, might as well plug it in.
So to be continued.
Yeah, so I'm adding that to ongoing business then, and Justin will be here next month to give us, an update too. If you wanna look into what you mentioned, that would be awesome for.
So do you have any update, as well as around new business on the water, the contamination of the river? Is there any news that you have to share about that?
Oh, so I wasn't sure where to bring that up. I was gonna just kind of see if Bobby was gonna mention it, and then if not, ask a little bit more from a city perspective. But if we could talk about that now, if that's okay?
I can't talk to it because I'm absolutely not involved.
At all, okay. I know that's not your division exactly, but yeah, I thought maybe you're in circles enough, in that building that you might have heard some things.
Honestly, everything I have is just
What's publicly
practice
out there.
conversation, and it was
Okay.
meaningless.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that whatever restriction they put was lifted. Oh, the no touch the water section of that river was back lifted, but it was, yeah, about a day or so. So, okay, I guess we don't have too much more.
So
There are
we don't know
news
what was
articles about that.
tested, like, was there,
My understanding
We don't-
from reading the news article, basically which was a part of the release, was there are lots of different tests that are done to, improve the water before it's allowed to be released. And if any one of those processes is left off, then it has to be considered not properly
Compliant,
filtered.
yeah.
Not compliant. So that's what happened, and then they were assessing it to figure out if it's harmful or whatever. And I didn't see, I don't know if I just didn't read it good enough, or I didn't, for the conclusion, I just saw that it was lifted. I didn't see if there was, what actually happened in
okay,
there. So
yeah, I didn't
know.
either, so I was just curious.
That's all I-
What was found, what was
Okay.
found in the testing process? I guess we don't know,
Yeah,
so there we go.
so, okay, well, I don't know if we'll get more answers on that or not, but, yeah. We can go to subcommittee reports about 10 minutes early.
Okay.
NFP Review Board.
Yeah, nothing new to report. What we talked about earlier, if there's some new draft language, I'm sure that'll come up in next week's meeting
Mm-hmm.
to be
Okay.
continued.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys have already gotten that, public comment to that specific section, or, maybe we can make sure that you guys see that suggestion as well.
Right.
Okay, and then air and quality.
Air quality, we kind of already touched on, nothing outside of that I know of. Water quality, my residents received this in the mail since the last meeting, the last couple of weeks. Everything looks wonderful. Gene, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, if you don't, well, what I go to is all the analytical data. And the one that is interesting to me, so you have to understand when EPA or other state level or whatever governmental agencies set concentrations, they'll set like an MCL, maximum concentration limit. In other words, do not exceed this concentration. Lead and copper is a little different. There are no maximum concentrations as set by EPA. There are what they call action levels.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning kind of like when it gets to this number, well, what are you supposed to do? You know, it's not an exceedance, so to speak, but it is nonetheless a target. And the action level for lead is 15 parts per billion, okay, in water. And then it says that we had and by the way, this says 2022. It's released in 2023, but it's for our 2022 year of data collection. And the ranges for the samples that were collected, say from 0 to 130 and 0 to 83. So I guess how do I interpret those ranges with an action level of 15?
I'd love to answer that.
Oh.
I
Yeah.
know that, the state requires the language on those to be as they choose.
Yeah.
It is confusing.
Yeah.
The first one I read, I thought, wow, we really need to rewrite this. You can't, it's mandated language.
Hey, that's interesting. Yeah.
And, it's hard to interpret, but, I'd have to refer you to, our lab director,
Okay.
because honestly, I don't have anything to do with those.
Yep.
Very complicated. It's a process, let me tell you.
Right. And the tough thing about lead and copper is water treatment plants, they evaluate the quality of water as it's leaving the plant. The problem, as we know, with lead and that kind of stuff is it's the water that travels through all the infrastructure by the time it comes out your tap. And even the infrastructure may be fine. It may be the lead fittings in your 1920 bungalow that's causing the problem. But some of that is dependent also on the chemistry of the water and its ability to leach lead from pipes, whereas there are lead pipes that have a nice layer of scale on them, and if that's left alone, they may communicate water very well and not, increase lead content in dissolved phase. But I was just curious about that. But almost everything else is non-detect, meaning it's below the laboratory method detection level, or is well below any maximum concentration level. So gate 2 Kalamazoo water. Yeah,
Well, I got that as well.
I hope people read them.
Good to know about the language, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it's been, like that language. Anyway, not a question for the land director.
All right.
Have him back again. Go on and on.
Okay, and then wildlife and natural resource protection.
I don't really have any, I don't have any news or updates. Our peregrine chicks, nobody else that I know about has been attached or attacked, in downtown Kalamazoo. Their little juvenile delinquents came back and have been flying around. I expect them to really, disappear within the next week or two. They'll take off on their next adventures, and I think their parents are ready to get them out of their hair. So, anyway, no news is good news, I guess.
Okay, anything with the urban bird treaty, like, process?
Well, actually, I had a meeting today with the core partners, because we gotten, turned down by the Fish and Wildlife Service. Although they felt we had a very strong application and encouraged us to address some of the points that were, that they made. We had a meeting with them, towards the end of June. And then, the local core, partners, had a meeting today, to go over some of the feedback from the Fish and Wildlife Service and basically, kind of decide, is this, fish or cut bait? Are we gonna try to accomplish what we've been asked to accomplish and resubmit? And the consensus was, we can do this.
Yay.
Because I said, I don't want to feel like I'm beating a dead horse or that I'm trying to force my own personal interests on the whole county. And, so I think we're gonna move forward. We had some great discussions and good brainstorming and ideas of going forward, and, I don't have any specifics right now, but it was a productive, meeting and encouraging, that the partners are all really, committed to working, together, and everyone feels that this would be, a good achievement for our area. So, we march on, and Gail doesn't get to just goof off and,
Is there anything we or the city can do that would help this process?
Oh, I'm sure that there is. I don't have anything specific right now. Justin had a conflict, with another meeting that he was obligated to go to, but Jamie was there, and she provided some great input and support. So that was good. And I'm sure as we work through this process, I'll keep you appraised and see what we can do to help.
Awesome, okay.
My battery on my computer is.
Oh, talk fast, okay.
All right.
We're almost at the end.
All right, planning commission, Rachel said that she would be able to do that, so she's not here right now, but next month hopefully we can do that. Tree committee, Gal?
Nothing specific. We are in the process of working on an update for the tree ordinance, and a tree manual, updating just to make things, consistent with the current standards, how many feet from a stop sign, how many feet from the wires, how many square feet, that the root zone needs, in planting. So it's a lot of that stuff. And it's being done by, consultant, Davy and Associates. And, and so they'll write it up, and we'll review it, send back comments. So, anyway, that's in progress.
Okay, sorry, I have follow-up questions. The inventory that was done, is there a process that's being done to keep that continually updated by chance?
No, in a word, that was, I don't know where the money came from, a grant, but that was, they were hired to do that. And I'm sure that at some point in time, there will be another inventory
Nothing, even a live, like, update of like, oh, these 10 trees were planted and these ones were removed.
Well, actually, they are working on some kind of an update that, and I don't really understand it, so I can't explain it, but, there will be like a QR codes and ability to pull up that information, by scanning QR codes.
Okay.
So I'm sure that there will be, that it will be kept up. I don't know that there will be another tree
Yeah.
inventory that is hired, that's hired to do, but now that we've got it, they can keep track of what comes down, what goes in,
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
And then any updates on the, grant that they were looking for?
No, I asked about that. It's been submitted, and they don't
Yeah.
expect to hear for
A little while, yeah.
a little while.
Okay.
They said many people applied,
Okay.
many
Alright.
entities applied.
Okay.
So
Right.
there's a lot of competition.
Okay.
That was national, right?
Yeah, it was national.
Okay, Asylum and Policy Management Council, went over water quality things again, and basically, moving forward in this water quality project. So that's really all. It was a quicker one besides that conversation. Parks and Rec?
Nothing of high environmental significance, but obviously it's summer and they have a ton of events planned, so it's just more human traffic going through the parks. But they do have a couple of cleanups scheduled, so you could tune into your neighborhood specific for when and where.
Local park cleanup?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, Watershed Council?
Yeah, the last meeting was a little bit disturbing. So the last meeting was, Monday this week, and they didn't even acknowledge that the 1.5 million gallon spill happened, which was kind of disturbing. It wasn't mentioned by a single person. And then the other thing, for those who aren't following the mega site thing in Marshall, it's also a little bit of a concern that the Watershed Council is really patting themselves on the back as being seen as an ally by Ford and Marshall for helping make this happen, over the very strenuous objections of all the people who live there. So I think going forward, the biggest takeaway is that we just need to keep an eye on what they're doing, because they don't seem to be on the right page on a lot of things.
Jean, do we want to plan for October as the tentative next wellhead update? You're on the list, so obviously you already went, but.
Whatever you want.
Okay.
You can give an update anytime you want.
Okay, sounds great. And then odor task force?
No, nothing to get.
Okay, did you get any communication with Aaron? I had
Aaron,
reached out to him and he said
He sent a message, copied me on it to have me edit, but that's the last I heard.
Okay, well, okay. And then community sustainability plan, next month, Justin plans to come back to give some updates on that. So, yeah. Can we check for comments, community comments? And we'll state that phone number again real quick. If anyone wants to call for public comment currently, it is 888-382-9556.
Right now, we are,
And then the comments, I'll look at the comments.
I think we're offline because my computer went dead.
Oh,
It says live.
well, we'll
Oh,
just keep
but
going for a second just in case, but there's one comment that, we should have maybe made a mention that we're having technical difficulties with the camera not being able to be used.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's both of the comments on Facebook at least. Does anyone see any comments on YouTube? Otherwise, yeah,
Anything I need to.
yeah, nothing there. Okay, so yeah, if there isn't anything else, we can adjourn.
Righty.
Cool.
Motion
Oh, yeah, I don't, do we do that, or?
No,
Or
we
just-
have to.
That's
You
right.
get to do it.
As I thought.
That's her thing.
Cool, cool.